Hello, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on Sports Illustrated and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider podcast here inside the team facility where they just finished doing interviews in the locker room. And it's time to get right to today's podcast. Got a lot to discuss with you. And really, if I had to give a name to today's podcast, it would really be looking ahead through the lens of reality, looking ahead through the lens of reality. Now, I'd like to make a couple of quick statements before I dig into what I want to say. I don't blame fans for ever thinking whatever they want. They're called fans for a reason, fanatics. And without you, none of us in the media have a job. So I'm not addressing the way any of you feel, but as a media member who's not a fan and a professional, it's my job to simply disseminate information for you. When I think it's time to panic, I would tell you that, and I would. Um, and it's my job, though, to be level headed, not a fan, and just deliver the information. Having said that, clearly this offense needs to get moving. And AP talked today and said that he did make the business decisions, but he's going to keep them in house. I have zero issues with that. I took some real grief on Monday's podcast when he had left open about quarterback by saying I didn't think it was Gardner Minshew's. He's not the one to point at to blame for the Raiders being 1-2. Um, I think there are some, clearly the offense has got to get off high center. I pressed. I didn't. Press isn't the word, but I certainly followed up my question on Monday. On Monday, I had asked AP but the Raiders' mantra of attack. And Al Davis says the Raiders don't take what the defense gives us. Those are Al's words, Al's voice. We take what we want. And I talked about him wanting his offense to be more aggressive. And he pointed out that they did go down the field. That wasn't really where my question was going. So today I just said to him, in follow up to my question on Monday, about attacking. I'm talking more about being 3rd and 5 and you throw it 3 yards. 3rd and 7, you throw it 5. 3rd and 3, you throw it 1. About being more attacking, like John Madden used to bemoan teams that don't do that. And he said that they're not drawing up plays for that. It's execution. So he clearly put it right on the players, which I thought was completely fair. We've got the audio and the video up of that press conference, but we also have it up of Devontae and Gardner Minshew, where I was in the locker room, but Zeke Trezevant, my assistant beat writer, asked Devontae and Gardner about that then, saying AP said it's an execution issue. And I plan on talking to Lou Getzey about it later this week because if it's being allowed, it's being coached. And so I'm going to talk to him about what are some things you're doing to get guys past the sticks on 3rd down. I think that's very fair. But AP made it very clear it isn't Getzey, it's player execution. Now, I'm going to tell you why I respect that because in all the time I've known AP, he's not a liar. And he's not going to blame his players if it's a coach's fault. He would say that's coaching. So when he is emphatic that it's execution, that's exactly what the issue is. So I'm going to ask Luke Getzey about that tomorrow. I think it's very fair. Um, and knowing what Nick Saban says, if you're allowing it, you're coaching it. What is he doing to fix that? I think that's very, very fair. So there are things that have to be fixed. I'm not sitting here like an ostrich with my head buried in the sand. But here's the deal there's just too much talent on this team to forget there are 14 games left. Now, to get to my 10-win prediction, they have to go 9-5 the rest of the way. That's a steep, steep course. But the talent's there to do it. So it's going to be fascinating to watch how this unfolds. But if you're looking at the state of the team through a reality, lenses of reality, I think it's very fair to be concerned. Very fair. I think it's also fair to step back and say, okay, with 14 games to go, I think you have to trust this staff and the people assembled to fix it. You certainly you don't throw away a child who makes a mistake at age 7. You work on it. And I'm not saying that these are children, but you are literally 3 games into a new regime. So, I'm not shilling for the team. The offense has been terrible. I'm not shilling for the team, but I am trying to be fair and to address some issues. Now, uh, I asked AP about the play of Jackson Powers Johnson, which I watched the film and I thought he was fine on film. I thought he was fine when I watched him play live. The film, he was tremendous. His feet were significantly better than where they were at Oregon, and I thought they were good at Oregon. I talked with him about that in the locker room. You'll see that interview tomorrow about that. But AP agreed with me that he played well, and I asked him based on his play, has he earned more playing time? And he said yes. And this is a paraphrase. I'm not saying it's a quote, but basically, you're going to see more of it this week. So I fully expect JPJ, if he doesn't start, to get a lot of time. I am simply guessing here, but because they played him at right with Dylan, would they move Dylan back to left and keep JPJ at right, or keep Dylan at right, move JPJ to left? We'll see. But AP was very clear he's earned more playing time, and he said he didn't get the playing time because of Dylan Parham's injury. I also talked to Dylan today in the locker room. He's hard at it. I'll put that interview up on Saturday where you can watch it on Saturday. But so it's going to be interesting to watch what they do with JPJ, but he earned more playing time. Um, I also like the fact where someone asked him about the quarterback situation. He said, Gardner's our guy. I think that's the absolute right call. Um, I said it on Monday before the announcement was public, so it's not like I'm shilling for the team. If they had made the change, um, I would have been critical, saying I think it was too early. If you have execution errors and they continue, then I think you have to look at everybody's position. But I think 3 games in, it would have been panic, and I don't think there's reason to panic on this team. So I have no problem with anything that happened there. Um, my conversation with JPJ, which you're going to see tomorrow, um, I thought was really fascinating. I was very impressed. After about his 3rd or 4th rep, he literally played like he did at Oregon, where he dominated and he played really, really well. And I asked him about that. I told him, I said, it seemed like that 3rd or 4th rep. And I thought he was fine in the first few reps, but he was JPJ form very, very quickly. And he agreed with that, by the way. But his feet were phenomenal, and I was very impressed with how he played. I spent some time in the locker room today with Jack Jones. Um, some people put some video out of some plays on Sunday that were I have no problem saying were not his best work. No problem saying that because they weren't. But I think he's been scapegoated a little bit. And you know me. I know this is going to get me massive amounts of criticism, and that's fine. I'm a big boy. I can handle that. I'm not God. But I I think there have been times this season at the Chargers, at Baltimore, where he played very well. And there were times that teams wouldn't even go at him. He's never been the most physical corner, but he's certainly not afraid of it. Although, again, I think he certainly put on film some bad plays that were warranted to be pointed out as bad plays, but I don't think they were warranted to be scapegoated as him being the problem. When you find yourself down 33 to whatever, a lot, um, I think there can be a tendency to let up, and AP's not going to allow it. And that's why I keep saying this, but I think the fact that the entire time I've covered the Raiders, I've listened to Raider Nation bemoan the coaches after a loss, and I think everybody should have been encouraged. Um, Antonio Pierce put this franchise on notice that what they showed on Sunday was unacceptable. And I think it was refreshing. And I think any Raider fan that thought he was wrong really needs to question their opinion there. The fact that he went out, went after everybody, and made a statement from coaching to players, I think was brilliant. And I think the team's going to respond. Now, you know what? I predicted them to be 2-1 right now, and they're 1-2. So clearly, I haven't been great at my predictions, but I genuinely think the Raiders are going to respond Sunday. I think it's going to be a response game. I think it's going to be a pride game. Their pride was hurt. And guess what? People's pride doesn't get hurt if they don't care. Now, but here's the issue. You can get your pride hurt, but then you don't respond properly. This is a team that AP, they got their butts whooped by Carolina. And from a couple people I've talked to, they got their butts whooped by AP. And their response is there's no finger pointing. In fact, I talked to several people in the locker room today, and just being around the team, there is everybody trying to take ownership for the loss. And I think that talks to you about character. Every single human being and every single football team goes through adversity in their life where we screw up or we go through tough times. It's literally the response. So if the Raiders respond and win 9 or 10 games, it's going to be fair to say, man, what if they would have won those two that they should have won against the Bolts in Carolina? But to get to that 10 win, they're going to have to probably win some games that we didn't expect. And if they do that, then you can say, well, yeah, but they won some games that weren't expected. So I just think that through the lens of reality right now, panic is not necessary. You can certainly do whatever you want. I'm not telling you you can't, but I don't see that as necessary. I had a really good visit with Adam Butler in the locker room as well, another exclusive. Um, Deshaun is another quarterback coming in if they don't make a quarterback change for the Browns where he's elusive. So you need an Adam Butler who's going to be very physical but stay in his gap. I think that's a big deal, a very big deal. I expect Butler to have a very good game. But he talked about bouncing back and about it being a long season, but you've got to bounce back. The thing I want to go back and reiterate is I think you can overreact after 3 games, but the way you respond tells everything. If they go out this week and they lay an egg like they did against Carolina and they get their butts kicked, then I think it's time legitimately for some either massive concern or even borderline panic. If they go out and battle tough and do what I expect they're going to do, that's fine. It doesn't have to be pretty. They just have to go get a win. And again, I think they're going to respond. Just being in that locker room, being at practice today, this is a team that was embarrassed and should have been. This is a team that's not pointing fingers. They're not saying, look at you, look at you, look at you, look at you. They're all doing, look at me. And I think it tells a lot about their character. I was asked today if I was going to change my prediction on 10 wins. And I said no, because that's what this team is. Now, they've made it more difficult on themselves. Nobody's denying that. Nobody is. So now they have to go do it, but it's still a 10-win team. I want to tell this story because I think it's very, very important. There was a time in my life when I was a teenager that I really screwed up and did something wrong. And my father very sternly corrected me, and I deserved every bit of it. I had a wonderful, loving dad. We get done, I get my punishment. He prayed with me. And a couple days later, he came to me, and my father and I were very close. And he said, man, you haven't been yourself, son. What's going on? And I told him, I said, I still am angry about what happened. And he grabbed me by the shoulders and he said to me, If it didn't bother you, I'd feel like I failed you as a dad. But the fact that it still bothers you tells me I raised you right. And he said to me, son, grace is forgiveness we don't deserve. And he said, and when we ask God to forgive us, he forgives us. And he said, and I've forgiven you. I need you to let it go. I need my son back. I'll never forget that. And in my life, when I have gone through tough times, some of them I didn't create, many I did. I've never forgotten that. And so this team played a terrible game. Wasn't like they went out and committed a crime. They just played terrible. Wasn't like they were out and were bad people. Just played terrible. But if they respond and it's a wake up call that literally, like the win at Christmas did last year, that propelled the Chiefs to a Super Bowl victory. If they use this to get to be 9 or 10 wins, to turn their season around as a wake up call that they're just not good enough to just show up and expect teams to lay down, then I think you look back at it as it still was a disappointing loss, but good came of it. Good came of it. Excuse me. So I just think trying to be as fair with you as I can and looking through lenses. I mean, they are still a team. Hey, they're not 0-3. They're still a team that's right there in the hunt for a playoff spot. They're in it. I know it's only 3 games, but those are all things you have to remember. I mean, there's a lot of 0-3 teams right now that would love to be the Raiders. And so I just think you have to keep it in perspective. Um, I've had a lot of people email, and I'm not going to read those in my weekly Q&A article, but evidently I meaning they were wrong. AP's got to go. This person's got to go. Nah, I'm not buying that. I'm not. First of all, I'm not moved at any point with Antonio Pierce. You give a new coach 20 games, you have some of these games because he's learning staff, he's learning it's a new roster. 50% of the roster's new since last year. These games happen. Now I'm speaking to you as an old man that's done this for many years. This happens. This happens. So how they respond though is the big issue. And so if I'm looking through this through lenses of reality, I would simply just say to you, we're going to learn a lot about the Raiders on Sunday. I believe because I'm embedded, because I'm here, because I'm talking to people all the time, I totally believe that I have my thumb on what this team is and who this team is. I believe that. Okay. You may disagree with that, and that's fine. I'm not God. But I believe they're going to respond because of the character. I've learned over the years there's several things. So after a bad game, is there finger pointing? There's been none of it. Is there accountability? There's been a ton of it. And today here in Vegas, it's well over 100 degrees, brutally hot here, even for this time of year. I heard a stat today. I've not verified this, but there's been more 100-day temperatures this year in Vegas than any year before since records have been kept. I can't verify that, but it was brutally hot, and it was a physical practice today, very physical. And AP got on it, and no complaints. So again, I think there are a lot of reasons you can be concerned about. Third down, passing behind the sticks, big concern. The running game. I've heard people email me. They want me to address that Zamir's lost it and he's terrible. Well, this is a kid a couple months ago is one of the leading rushers in the NFL. That's not the case. So either it's how they're teaching the scheme or they need to adjust the scheme. That's fair. They're going to probably have 2 rookies, if not starting, playing significantly. I told you after the game, I thought DJ Glaze played good other than 1 sack. I wanted to watch the film. I watched the film. I thought he played very good, and so did AP today. So you're looking at an offensive line that's probably going to have two guys either starting or getting significant reps. And both of those two young offensive linemen are very promising. Very promising. You got Dylan playing like a stud, Andre James playing well, and Colton Miller. He's a dude. So I think there are a lot of reasons for optimism. I think there's a lot of reasons to be excited if you're a Raider. Concern? Absolutely. Panic? No. Now they go lay an egg and play as poorly as they played last Sunday, this coming Sunday. Sure, I do. I'll put that out there on a Wednesday. Absolutely, that would be concerning to me. I don't think they're there. And we're going to learn a lot together. Again, plenty of room for concern. I'm not seeing the panic, but they understand now that they're not good enough to just show up. I remember talking to a person that was on many of the Patriots teams that had great success and asking him about that. And he talked about how Bill Belichick wanted them to play to their standard because they would just show up and beat teams who looked at the jersey and the uniform and almost laid down. And they said it was a danger, and that's why Belichick had to really hammer it. I've talked to you also about how Nick Saban talks about his Alabama teams playing to a standard. I think what you saw was a very young football team in year one of a head coach with a bunch of new assistants that felt good about themselves because they know there's a lot of talent coming off a win at Baltimore and just thought, hey, we can show up and win. They had a great week in practice and they showed up. And Carolina came to punch them in the face. Good wake up call. And if they use it to get the season back on track, all good. So I think it's time now to get that perspective back. It's going to be a very pro Browns crowd on Sunday. We all know that. That's just the reality of it. The Browns travel tremendously well, and a lot of people are selling their tickets because they're frustrated. I get that. I want to address one more issue before I let you go tonight, and it's the issue of the same old Raiders. I've covered this team for 5 years. I'm not pretending I've been a lifelong fan. I have not. And a lot of you have been around this team a lot longer than me. But I will tell you, this is not the same old Raiders because the same old Raiders would have pointed fingers. Coaches would have said, we just got to get back to work. And none of that's going on. So, Raider Nation, you do whatever you want. I would never insult your intelligence in telling you what to think. But I am a realist. And I've done this a long, long time. I think your team's going to respond Sunday. Every response that I was looking for, that I have learned over the years, both with my personal observation and being around great coaches, every single reason to believe that they're going to get this right, I saw. Doesn't mean they will, but I saw it. And I think this team has a chance to get to 2-2, then going up to Denver to a very winnable game. There's a lot of opportunity here. And there's 14 games left. I appreciate you taking time. I want you to know something. I know you don't have to watch my podcast. You don't have to read all the articles that we write. You choose to. I don't take you for granted. I'm also, though, not going to sit here and throw fuel on the fire because it gets clicks. I just hope over the long haul, Raider Nation will say maybe we don't always agree with Uncle Hondo, but we respect the fact he's respectful of us and he approaches it as a fair, balanced, non-fan journalist. That's all I can hope for. And that's the reality of what I see. And I'll say it again. If they go perform the way they did against Carolina, panic is fair. I don't see it. I just don't see it. But we're going to find out soon enough on Sunday. We'll see tomorrow. God bless you. Have a great day.